Welcome to Coming About with David Paragamian, the podcast that dives deep into the minds of leaders who have transformed their businesses and industries, paving the way for a better future. Here's Dave.
My guest today on Coming About is Olga Fleming, the industry-leading CEO of MMC, one of Omnicom's largest PR firms, leading an agency that's been known through a culture-first approach. And with 30 years of experience in corporate communications, both building her own agency and now leading one of the iconic agencies in the industry, I know she's got a lot to share about her career, about how to lead, how to innovate. Olga, welcome to Coming About.
I was so happy to be here, Dave. What a wonderful opportunity to chat.
No, thank you. That's exactly how I feel about it. And I think we're really privileged to hear from you today. Olga Fleming, as I said in the introduction, is a bit of a legend in the PR industry. You are the sitting CEO of Marina Maher Communications. You were recently recognized by PR Week as one of the top professionals in the industry. Last year, you got an Agency Innovator of the Year award. So anxious to hear some of your insights, and particularly knowing that the theme of this whole podcast Coming About is about how you got here, how things happened, those big moments and pivots in your career were certainly interesting to learn from some of those. So let me start at the beginning. How did you know coming out of university that you wanted a career in PR communications?
Well, it's a funny story because I actually didn't know at first. My early interests lean more towards international relations and economics. I was about 7 years old when my parents and I moved from Greece, where I was born, to New York. And I was always very interested in international relations and global topics. And I went to school at American University, and I thought I was going to join the Foreign Service. Went into the field, and after a very short period of time, I realized that it wasn't for me. And primarily was because I didn't feel like I was affecting change fast enough. I enjoyed the storytelling part, but I became fascinated by how communications could influence behaviors, inspire belief, and create real world change. And I felt like I could do it somewhere else faster. And PR, particularly at the intersection of healthcare and consumer. I started my career in healthcare, specifically in corporate communications, really gave me the canvas to take complex ideas and make them not only digestible, but emotionally resonant for people. And so someone who thought I wasn't a great speaker, or I wasn't a great writer, went into a field that have those two disciplines as their foundation. So I just followed the magic and where kind of my heart felt like I could make the most impact.
It's a great story. And I'm going to skip over the part that you as a Greek and me as an Armenian, this is really the Spanakopita podcast. But I'll start with the professional part, which is that insight that you had that although you went to school in DC and thought you were going to be a diplomat, that the world of diplomacy and statesmanship, as they call it, it moves pretty glacially. And of course, in advertising and PR and communications, every day is election day in the marketplace. So you clearly pivoted into the fast moving part of the world. One of the other things that you notice when you jump into the career choices that you and I have made is that who you work for matters. And so I'm just wondering, early on in your career, are there any experiences or individuals that you remember that particularly helped shape you and accelerate your career?
There are two experiences I would say that have really shaped who I am. One was around understanding client service and bespoke client service, and one understanding the importance of your own people as in an agency or in a company, and how you pay attention to them. So it's really interesting. It's right. It's one coin, two sides: external customers, internal customers. And I had the good fortune of working for a investor relations financial communications firm right out of school. And the CEO of that agency, he really helped showcase the importance of client service, how it went really beyond just the day-to-day transactions of activities or types of, campaigns or whatever we were doing at that moment. And it was all about how we actively listened and responded to the needs of clients. And it's interesting because I felt very fortunate to have started at a time when we didn't have email or the internet. And the reason why I think that was fortunate is because we didn't have technology in the way of personal relationships. And creating personal relationships with the C suite of our clients, with key decision makers and key stakeholders from our target audiences was so important because there was nothing else. There was nothing in the middle. And I think now there's so much, right? There's the virtual world. There's us, having conversations and meetings on Zoom and Teams. And that personal relationship, that understanding of the client's needs and wants, which sometimes are not always present in an email or in a correspondence over Zoom, is so important. So I was very lucky that I got to start at a time and with a mentor who really took client service to a kind of a different level.
Yeah, that's so well said. And like you, I've been in the client service business for 20 plus years on the agency side. And as I listen to you speak, what really resonates for me is we never start a project. You never start a project without a brief, without an objective. There's always a written, but when you get to know people and you really listen to them, there's also the thing that's unsaid or the thing that's between the lines that may not be written in the brief, but that's important to them. So you're right. I mean, I think that whole idea of really knowing, understanding, listening for what's important is the only way that to your point, the magic, I love that word, the magic happens. So tell me, you built your own business and then you made a pivot to join a very large firm, owned by one of the big agency holding companies. What was it that led you to close the chapter as the entrepreneur and start the chapter as the leader of this very large firm? That's a big decision. Tell me about that decision.
It was a big decision, and it wasn't something that happened, obviously, overnight. And it was a very tough decision. I would say it's one of the toughest decisions I've made. I had the pleasure of working at WPP for almost 10 years. Donna Imperato, who was leading Conan Wolf at the time, gave me the opportunity to start a brand under the Conan Wolf and then the BCW, now Burson umbrella. And I was so honored to be able to create this brand. And this brand, being a boutique within a very large infrastructure, became cutting edge pretty fast. Initially, we were called Wine RPR, and then we rebranded to Good Fuse. And what we tried to do, we were a boutique agency, but we were lean but very mighty, is that we evolved from a traditional agency into something so much more empathetic and modern. And it was truly a cultural reset on what agencies can accomplish. And it kind of leads to the second person who had a pretty big impact in my career. And he probably shakes his head and thinks like, no, I probably didn't. But it was very interesting because while I was at WPP, I had a mentor who said to me, the way that you prioritize 4 things is going to discern whether you are good or great. And those 4 things are people, the work, the finances, and the clients. And how you prioritize those 4 things will decide how successful you are. And I was like, really? And he said, yes. He goes, you always have to put people first because happy people do great work. Great work leads to very happy clients that are delighted. And then if you have those things, then everybody wins. That's the finances part. And that stuck with me. It seems so simple, but it stuck with me. And that was my blueprint for how I ran the business and how I ran the business Good Views. And so when we decided to create this agency within an agency and it became so successful, I got to a point, and this was during COVID, where I was like, I want to do this on a bigger scale. I want to showcase that culture matters on a bigger scale, because everyone was saying how, well, you have a small agency, so you can cultivate culture in a small environment. And I said, I believe I could do it in a larger environment. And so when Marina Maher came to me and said, hey, I have an opportunity for you here. Would you be willing to move? At first, I was not interested because I had built this agency from nothing. How could I leave it behind? But at the same time, I felt like I had a calling to take the culture first, human first mindset and bring it somewhere larger. And so I decided to make the leap. And it was a personal and professional pivot. And then shortly thereafter, Marina passed me the baton, and I was honored and realized what an important responsibility I had to run this iconic brand. But at the same time, I knew I had the right tools at the ready, which is putting people first, to create a beautiful culture that then disrupted an industry. A long way of saying that if you put people first, magical things happen.
Yeah, no, and you actually hit certainly something that I believe at my core, right? I mean, I work in a private equity backed environment now and have for the past 5 years. So I know that private equity men and women really love to hear the numbers first. I'm always happy to lead with the numbers. Of course, obviously, financial shareholders are always eager to see KPIs and numbers and outcomes. But I'm always quick to point out that results, those are actually the sequela. They're the byproduct of getting the people piece right. So when you get the people right and the culture right, the results follow, exactly as you just said. Well, Olga, we've got to take a break here. But next time on Coming About, Olga Fleming, CEO of Marina Maher Communications, will share the advice that she'd give her younger self and to anyone looking to break in and advance in the communications industry.
Don't wait for permission to lead. Be courageous, because you are going to make mistakes, but every mistake is going to lead to an impactful moment. Own the mistakes.
This has been Coming About. We hope these conversations have left you feeling empowered and ready to take your organization to the next level. To speak with Dave about your business transformation or to learn more about Health Monitor Network, go to healthmonitornetwork.com. And don't forget to check out his book, Coming About: How We Transformed a Major Media Company and the Lessons There for You. Available wherever books are sold. Coming About with David Paragamian is a production of Advantage Audio.